Hello, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Weekly Fuels Briefing for Thursday, August 20th, 2026. To start off, we have an update on our Great Basin Fuel and Fire Behavior Advisories. We issued these a couple of weeks ago, and we have allowed the Utah-Nevada advisory to expire, and we have renewed the advisory for Southwest Idaho. Past 14 days is shown here with the inches on the left and the percent of normal on the right. We did see a pretty significant monsoon surge in the last week or so, bringing widespread precipitation to many areas. However, there are a few areas that didn't see much precip that we're still going to be quite concerned about. Worth pointing out here, especially southwest Idaho, parts of northwest Nevada, and even parts of Utah. Eastern Idaho didn't see a whole lot of precipitation, including parts of central Utah there, the northern Fish Lake and the southern Manti, where the precipitation was just more spotty. Day since precipitation is shown here, and we can see a lot of the raw stations across the area did see some precipitation in the last week with that round of monsoon moisture, but definitely some spots out there that it's been over a month since they've seen precip, notably southwest Idaho and parts of northern and western Nevada. Drought conditions are shown here. We've got some short-term drought on the left and long-term drought on the right. In the short term, we still have some pretty significant drought conditions over southwest Idaho, parts of western Nevada, and even southern Nevada and southern Utah are still showing some drought in those areas, but we have seen some improvement over northeast Nevada and northwest Utah in the last few weeks. The longer-term drought monitor on the right does show continued very, very extreme drought conditions over southern Idaho, northern Nevada, and across parts of western and central Utah. ERC percentiles are shown here. We certainly have seen some improvement in these numbers since our report last week after that monsoon surge that came through, but we still have some elevated values over the 80th percentile across western Idaho and northwest and far western Nevada, as well as a few PSAs in southern and southeast Utah. Taking a closer look at the values in Idaho, we can see some elevated fire danger indices over western and southwest Idaho, where those values are above normal for the time of year, but below historical maximums. Further east in eastern Idaho and western Wyoming, the values are actually below normal for the time of year. Recent fire and fuel activity in Idaho is shown here. For the U.S. Wildland Fire Service Unit 1, Southwest Idaho, we can see sagebrush live fuel moisture is below normal at all sites, and these values would lead us to expect fires to exhibit extreme to advanced fire behavior, with sagebrush fuel moistures all below 80% and some of them into the 70s, 60s, and even 50s. On the Boise National Forest, we've had the Crooked Fire start up in the last couple of days, burning well in timber up to 350 acres as of the last report. And on the Salmon Challis National Forest, recent precip has resulted in an overall decrease in large fire potential. We can see in the image on the bottom right. This is precipitation percent of average for the last 30 days. Those areas in purple are over 600% of normal. So definitely a wet period up there. Popping down to Nevada, we see some similar trends with some elevated values across the north and western parts of the state. Along the Sierra front, those values took a pretty dramatic drop from where they were a little over a week ago with the precipitation coming in. The values are on the rebound, right around average for the time of year, and are expected to gradually increase over the coming week. Further south and east, those values are below average for the time of year. Again, haven't quite recovered from the precipitation from last weekend. Looking at recent fire activity and fuels information for Nevada indicates there's some low sagebrush fuel moistures across Unit 7, Carson District. Those values are below average, but not quite as low as the historical records. And then recent precipitation along the Sierra front there did result in some rapid decrease in fire behavior on those ongoing fires there. We also have the Shoshone fire that popped up this week. Fire grew rapidly in juniper fuel types even after recent precipitation in the area. Fire danger values across Utah have also taken a dramatic hit with the precipitation that moved in. Most of these values are going to be below the 70th percentile, but we do have some areas that are a little bit higher there in the Manti, Fish Lake, and as far southeast Utah. Recent fire activity in Utah shows the Black Canyon fire on the Manti La Sal National Forest that's been growing steadily in the heavier fuel types. Missed out on that first round of monsoonal moisture a couple weeks ago. Did receive a little bit this past round. There on the Book Cliffs as well, the Slow Canyon fire continues to burn in mixed conifer fuels. On the Dixie National Forest, after the second round of pretty good monsoon precipitation, fuel moistures are starting to show some improvement, and grasses are greening up for overall decreasing fire potential there. To sum things up, not a lot of zones changed on our critical fuel status map from last week to this week, but a few zones did move back into the yellow category, namely zones on the Salmon Chalice National Forest, and also the Dixie National Forest moved back into the approaching critical, reflecting impacts from the recent precipitation there. This concludes today's briefing. Please check back next week for the latest updates.